Good morning, everyone. Hello and welcome. I hope you guys can hear me. There are people here. Wow, there's 12 people here. Thank you for coming. All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually attach that thing you're hearing is the Ethernet cable. I have to really attach it because it falls off the adapter. Anyways, I'm going to connect directly to the Ethernet just in case. Okay, because sometimes I use Wi-Fi. All right, so welcome. Hi. Oh, there was 12 people, and then all of a sudden, bam, disappeared. Okay. Anyways, for those who will be watching this or watching this, welcome. My name is Jose. For those who are new or new to my channel, this is what I do is, well, I do many things. In this specific channel, I focus on astrology, specifically what I coined for myself as microastrology. It's kind of like microbiology because it goes into the little details of things. So, for example, when I read for someone or when I have a reading for something, I actually use asteroids. I've worked with over 200, something like that, asteroids, and it just keeps growing. The list keeps growing. And I do my own research on it. When I say research, I mean like I look at the mythology and I look at the astronomical data and I tie it what they mean to today's vocabulary, so to speak. Like it creates its own vocabulary, it has its own meaning behind it. And then I also go from beyond that by there's several ones that I do after that, like the meaning stuff. When I write down the meanings, I describe what they mean. Like for example, when I first did my research on Ceres, I noticed, okay, so she's about fluctuation, she's about cycles because her daughter, Proserpina, the Roman equivalent of Persephone, for those who know who that is, it she comes back to the earth during springtime and summer, and then in the fall and winter seasons, she goes back into the underworld. Um, but behind that story, she was looking for a daughter. So she's always about also like searching. She's about navigating. She's about kind of like that desire for actual nurturing. She's also about like being able to take care of yourself, but also take care of others. She's the so that's the mythology, the meaning behind it. But then when I looked at the specific words behind the actual words, I looked up the synonyms actually for each one, and figure, does that feel like Ceres? So I really kind of try to tap into her story, what I would do if I were in her shoes, that kind of stuff. So, and because she's about like going from different worlds, she is about portals as well. So that's the beautiful thing about Ceres. She's labeled as an asteroid, but there's this theory that she's actually a dwarf planet that was kicked into the solar system, whereas her high vibration Sedna is a dwarf planet, but could have been an asteroid, I think, or something like that. They kind of switch places. Not really switch places. It's not don't take that. um, but yeah, so it's an interesting story. And it's funny how Sedna's story is also so she orbits the sun, revolves around the sun, orbits the sun every 1,000 or so years. Very long orbital period. So that means that she's very definitely a generational planet, but way more than that, she is about, how do you call this? Deep processing of what your inner nurturing is, your inner mother, your inner guide, your inner, I guess you could say, resilience as well. And being able to trust that you can provide for yourself. You have that inner stuff in yourself. So, what do you call this? Um, and so she's like pretty much like that. Sorry, it's kind of distracting me here. Okay, there you go. Yeah, so that's that. So when I do my research on them, I do the actual mythology, and the astronomy goes more into when I translate that, when I interpret that. That's actually what do you call it? It's through numerology. So for example, if there's a planet that's 313, I just go 313 on the birth chart, astronomical. Sorry, the numerological birth chart. It is like two threes, 111. So what that can signify is there's a lot of mind balance in the mind, balance in intellectuality, balance in logic, and all that stuff of what that asteroid might represent, but also very identified with oneself and the body, very much grounded, but at the same time can be drawn to more carnal things. It's kind of a initiative sort of point. It's like a starting point. Whenever you have one number, it feels correct me if I'm wrong for those who are more in depth with who are more experienced with numerology, but based on what I remember, it's something to do with just it's part of your identity. It's part of like who you are. You do this. So if you have 313, it means that you have an acute ability towards thinking and logic, and your thought process is okay. But it can go. I think it's kind of like a you're very curious about things, your starting point, because it's just one, right? But the moment it goes into two, there's a balance effect there. So you kind of work with the balance. There's a more of a cohesion, so to speak, between the two. Yeah, the higher the number, the more intense I guess it gets. Three is kind of somewhat imbalanced. There's like a that's what they say in numerology. Four becomes kind of boxed in. This is square, right? Um, And I think 5 becomes a bit more complicated because it's more emotions involved in the whole process. So if you have 5 nines, 5 eights, 5 sevens, so it only goes from 1 to 9. Anyways, we're not here for numerology, but that's what I do when it comes to the data I get from the astronomy. But then sometimes with the astronomy, we'll say also is like they have this sort of thing and they're this from this body, and I interpret that. So it becomes like an art form itself when I do my research. And so what happens is the asteroids slash planetary bodies have their own they have their own just like definition, so to speak, like words that used for them. And then what happens is they create a meaning. And so basically all these stuffs are pre-downloaded, right? I also go into um, as I do the research on each asteroid, what happens is I notice that they have other things in the stories, in the legends, legend stories, and sometimes it could be like a little bit more than that, but it's still stories, right? It's based on narration. It's a narrative based on those specific narratives of those archetypal energies or archetypal representations through the words that I discover for each asteroid or dwarf planet or centaur or what have you. This even applies to other stuff like fixed stars. I've been doing that myself too. What I noticed is that there's parts of the story kind of just like, oh, that feels a bit like this could go into the body. So what happens is when I say this could go into the body, what I meant by that is, um, so for example, there was a part of like Apollo, the asteroid Apollo. You know, Apollo is Apollo, but that's the mythology. But he was actually tied to like um, casting like what is it, poison or something like that, or poisoning people for punishment or something like that. So he has to do a lot. He has a lot to do with poisons and toxins in the bodies, things that are probably foreign to come to your body, any sort of encounter. But he's also like inflammation because he is the sun. So whenever I do that in my charts, like my chart readings for someone, it applies, right? And you're like, oh, da da da. Um, what is it? Apollo also has to do with burning because there was something about his story where his arrow or something like that, he burned something. I forgot what it was. But anyway, so yeah, he's tied to burning, inflammation, like I said. So it's not just because he's a sun, but because it's that. or he represents the sun in mythology. Um, so that applies to medical astrology. Now, when it comes to the more political things like everyday things, I didn't apply to what's referred to as national or mundane astrology. So, for example, if we're talking about a place or a country or an event, even that's common in astrology readings. When you do like, it's not for a specific person; it becomes like an event chart. So, anyways, so those are examples, and then based on how it feels overall, what happens is that um, Apollo can be tied to also like the toxicologist. So it applies to vocational astrology as well. And then it goes into evolutionary astrology, which, for example, if you have um, some of the, well, actually, any of the planets work evolutionarily. What I mean by that is like for the sun, it's usually about power, managing of power, managing of control. Are you controlling yourself? It's ego related, identity, all that stuff. And what that means is that on an evolutionary level, you're here to learn about that. Not specifically what sign it's in, it makes a difference, right? If I say your sun is in Gemini, then you're here about controlling, about being in control about how you communicate, how you express yourself, working with siblings, working with balance and logic, but also like your natural, like I guess you can say immediate skills. Learning itself is part of the whole growth process. So that comes with the sun thing, right? So that's something super simple. But when it comes to things like with Apollo, it kind of does the same thing. You have evolutionarily speaking, it's all about control as well, because he didn't want to be wrong, so he has a lot of pride. Both him and his sister Artemis, or Diana, the Roman equivalent, they're both tied to a lot of, especially the Greek versions of the mythology. They're a little bit more serious. They're a bit darker. So they always kind of punish people for not doing what they wanted. So the twins, Apollo and the Artemis, they represent like kind of, it's a petty stuff. So here, evolutionarily speaking, they can also represent this sort of like, if we don't get what we want, then how do we go about that? Like we're here to learn that sometimes every person is just different. You can't always be in control. You can't be the petty god, right? Petty divine, sort of that kind of stuff. And then also it could also branch into because there's other branches of astrology like love astrology or synastry. Um, this is where it becomes a bit more like any of the stories tied to, let's say, for example, the asteroid Clytia. Sounds funny, I know. She was tied to Helios. So Helios, it kind of just ignored her, but Clytia was always running after him. Like she kind of worshipped him, and then so she's tied to the flower. I think there's something. Oh, Helio, something. She's tied to that. Even the story of Helios is also tied to that flower. Both of them, because the story is there. It applies to both of them. Just like with Eros and Psyche, they share a story. So components of the interpretation applies to both of them in a reading when I use the asteroid. So Clytia, for example, let's go back to Clytia. When it comes to relationships. So, for example, whatever it is in your chart, whatever it is in any specific chart, or even if it's like, or in this case, I was talking about synastry or love astrology. What happens is Clytia becomes this part of, especially if it's in your fourth, fifth, four, five, six, seven, eight houses. There might be a component. There might be an what do you call this? Not only experiences in an individual's life, but also like how you relate with someone and what you expect them to be for you, or vice versa. If culture is strong in your chart and you desire someone who um where you can worship each other, basically, where you can be there for each other, like it's almost like grandiosity in love, earthly love, right? So that's Clytia. That's an example. Again, it depends on what sign it is. If it's, let's say, an Aquarius, it's more about how you express appreciation and gratitude, and maybe gratitude, but more like worship, and how you look up to a person based on their intellectuality. So someone who's coming into your life, if they have a Clitia in your chart and it's affecting yours, they would probably be the one worshiping you, or like looking up to you or admiring you. It doesn't really apply to you. It can. I usually if it's in your actual chart. So these are examples of what I do. Where I go into what do you call this? The meanings of the stories, and then branches off into other stuff as well. I've also used this my style of astrology to like locational astrology. I actually love it because it's like um, I use under locational astrology. There's a thing called astrocartography, where it's basically looking at the map, the astro map, and then you look at a person's how they what do you call this? Like if you're doing it for yourself or someone else, doesn't matter. You look at where it you vibrate. If your focus is more on, if you let's say you're going to move to a place and your focus is more on growing a business or finding a partner um, or just starting up a business or having more energy, or the opposite where just you want it a bit more quieter and you want things to go slowly, then you go into depending on where the the chart is. I'll show you what I mean. So here, let's go with, let's say, I don't know. Let's say the U.S. Let's make this into let's tie in national astrology with locational astrology. Okay. What we're going to do right now is I'm going to share the screen here, or share the tab. Extended chart selection. So we go into United States. Okay. Oh, wait, that's bad. No, not that. I wanted to go into travel. There you go. So you click on travel. Oh, okay. It can only be done for, okay, let's say, okay, let's go with me. I'm just going to go with this one. Okay. You need time. Okay. You can see how this is the astrocartography map, or the astro map. So you can see those lines, right? Whatever your focus is on, like if you say you have a client and they're asking for, what do you call this? They want something, I don't know. They want to work on, uh, they want to have a family. So you go to their moon. Usually moon is usually tied to family. So wherever the moon is here, you usually see the moon is like here. But then you also see DC there, MC. MC is the nadir. No, MC is midheaven. So that means having a family tied to career. So having a home that's like a career that feels like home, basically. So that means for me, I would focus on going into places like in Russia or in Pakistan or something like that. Right. So I'll show you what that does is that, let's say I chose, I don't know, let's go zoom in. Let's see, you see that blue line right there? Let's say we go into Pakistan and Karachi. Let's say Karachi is very close to that line. You see that? So you see how it's a moon MC there. So I'm going to go to Karachi. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into horoscopes here, extended chart selections. We can do the technical stuff later. And what you're going to do is you're going to go into the very bottom. It says default settings, modify data. And then you take off use birthplace. And then you go to Pakistan. The place was Karachi. Okay, continue. And what you're going to do is the same thing here. Horoscope for me, chart type, you go all the way down to what's called relocation chart needs reference place. Okay. And it's what it's going to do, it's going to highlight. I like using to all objects, descending object, true node. So it needs to be in this section, not the natal chart, because what happens now is that the natal chart basically shape shifts. Okay, so my chart would look completely different. You see how the moon is highlighted in the midheaven, MC? You see that? There you go. So if I were to move to this place, this would highlight my feeling at home with the public there. That's a general thing. Okay. So there's that. Okay, so but let's say, for example, if we were to, I thought I was going to do the United States and all this stuff, but apparently time didn't show. Let me try that again. I thought I could. Let me review that. Use that be the birthplace. I want to test it. Okay, let's go back to Astro Click Travel and then United States. Okay, so it does work. Okay. So this would be more like, this is actually something I've never done before. So good for you guys. So this is going to be some sort of, I guess, surprise. I don't know. So here, what probably happened, because the United States is a natural larger entity, it's collective, it's the country itself. We're talking about national astrology, so it means like more like the country itself. So if we're, let's say, talking about let's go with the moon again. Okay, let's go with the moon MC again. If we were to highlight something here, okay, and then we go into, let's say, Jaipur right there. Do you see that? Jaipur is very close to the land. Or Bikaner. Bikaner? I don't know how to do that one. So what would happen is that if I were to focus on that and go into back into extended chart selection and then change the birthplace to Bikaner, I don't know how this will work. Bikaner is, hold on, is that in India? Oh, it is in India. Okay. So let's say we're talking about Bikaner right there. Hopefully it shows up here. It does. Okay, good. So that means that this will be funny. Funny as in like interesting funny. Again, using to all objects, to say no true node. Okay, click on that. So the United States chart has shifted. If it were to so-called live in Bikaner, India, it wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. I would necessarily say that this interpretation is more about United States going to India. It's obviously not that, right? I would say it's more about how Americans will feel like in Bikaner. So it'd be more of a personal thing, or it could be that how they relate to that place, right? So that means that the people, which in this case the moon, instead of just me as in my emotion, like my feeling at home, on a person, because on a personal level, the moon is interpreted slightly different from. It is not quite different from, like if it were like a collective. In this case, the United States represent the collective, right? It's still the collective, or the country, or the government, or anyone in the government position. They would probably relate to the public there in a very, how do I explain this one? If the general people and the masses of the United States, the people there, would probably feel like they could do business with that. See, it's actually trying to Jupiter, but they would they would feel like they are in, um, they would be a highlight in for them. The moon would be highlighted, and they would be seen as like very nurturing, probably in that city. Could be the government, could be the people. I would say it's either or both. So this is one thing. That's cool. Now, if I were to use, let's say if I were to add the asteroid, we were talking about, let's say, Ceres. Okay, let's add that here. So if we were at, okay, interesting. So Ceres is actually in the 10th house here. Not very close to the moon, but it was still a pi. So here, what that would mean is that if I were to add Ceres to this interpretation, to this whole reading itself, and I would be, let's say, talking to a government official in the United States or something, the Pentagon, whatever, I would tell them that it's like, mm, there might be concerns about what does Ceres represent in terms of mundane astrology. Let's go back here to my own cheat sheet. Go cheat sheet. Okay. There might be small, what do you call this? They might be able to have specific like rituals there. Farming. When I say rituals, I mean like celebration, that kind of stuff, festivals, weddings. That might be sort of okay, but it would be private because it's retrograde here. It might kind of feel like when an American is there or when the government is there, it might kind of feel off with how they represent themselves. People would be like, "You're telling me all this, but I don't understand your intentions." So they would be kind of weird for the people in that area. I'm not judging that as it is, but because I see a square here, there might be challenges when it comes to farming. It might be kind of unexpected. The public would be like, "Why are you farming here? I don't understand." There might be too much water for the governments, and if they were to set up a business there, or an American setting up a business there, um, it's stuff with issues or maybe concerns or challenges with soil, agriculture itself, weeds, digging, having open land, acres of land, um, plowing, harvesting, this kind of stuff. Grains would be kind of a thing as well, etc. Because so the list goes on. So that's an example. See right there, I added dwarf planet slash dwarf, sorry, asteroid slash dwarf planet. But yeah, so yeah, so anyways, the point is there's that. So that's an example of how I would use that. Sorry, I'm a little bit kind of like, ooh, that's very interesting. I have never done this before. Or I go into the uh, locational astrology with mundane astrology. That's very cool. I love combining disciplines in astrology. I also enjoyed like combining what do you call this? Other disciplines with astrology. I use it for if you look at into my channel, I've also combined it with mediumship. Actually, because when I do readings for people, especially when I'm actually connected to them, like live or even better in person, you connect to them energetically. It's biochemical, so it's easier to pick up that kind of stuff. So psychic becomes easier, right? But I've also done it where I did a video with someone and we were looking into asteroids, but not the one based on my research, but just names and how it showed up in their chart. And then I was able to analyze who this person was for them, and then it actually came through. So there was both a connection through astrology, then through the psychic stuff became mediumship. So there was a connection, and it came through because they started coming to me and they were like funny, and they're like, they're like, okay, you're talking about this and you're talking about that. So it was a mixture of both two modalities in one, and it's just like a wonderful reading. Sorry, my lips are dry. It's dry where I live, by the way. Extra dry these days because of the shift. You have Saturn in Aries right now, so people who are it's something about the adrenaline. If your adrenaline is too high, maybe that might cause dryness. It depends where you are, who you are. Okay. So welcome. There's a person who just came in. I just noticed that. I was just talking about what I kind of just do. So for those who came, Doc, thank you. For those who came and left, that's okay. Still, thank you. And then they left. Okay. Maybe there's an internet connection thing. So I'm going to keep talking about what else there is. So recently I've been doing like research on uh, galactic bodies like quasars. That one's interesting. So um, I realized that quasars have to do with how do I explain quasars? It's kind of like, let me do it this way. What did I have? Fix, not the fixed stars. Oh, I have my little cheat sheet. It's actually a cheat sheet for now. It's not big. Let's see here. Okay. So quasars are basically an inner guidance that just brings us back to our wholeness-based wisdom. Um, that's the way I understand it. I could be wrong. I've yet to test it and see what it's like. The thing about quasars is that they are because they are basically how to explain this one. I don't know how to put it in actual words without sounding funny and unscientific. They're basically like galaxies that come kind of together. That's the way I understand it, and they form under a black hole, and they become this phenomena that's kind of just like one. I guess you can say conglomeration of energies, and it's very intense. It's very crazy. So it's very much like that kind of stuff. It's quite intense. So yeah, they have a lot to do with inner light, being busy kind of stuff. They're it feels kind of they're when I did the research on them, they're kind of going back to origins, but at atomic level. Um, how do I explain this one? They're very primordial because what happens is that quasars were actually more active way back millions of years ago. They're less common now. I think it's because of the shifts in galaxies. Galaxies are moving and the solar systems are moving. Certain solar systems, like our solar system, is moving toward the center of this galaxy that we're in. I think it's the galactic center. So quasars are tied to that. But so what's happening is quasars are kind of that whole transmission of energy. They're kind of like in a way beacons. I don't know how to describe them. They're kind of like bing, ding, 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 right? And it's a relationship between you and um actually I should probably add that in. Not should, I will. I just heard beacons. Every time I get downloads like this, it's wonderful. Okay, let's they're also about the underdog. So I like that. Or am I gonna put beacons? Okay, I find it here. Changes kind. So they're basically about that kind of detectable or undetectable information. Light is also part of this one. So EMRs, electromagnetic radiation, I think it's called. Um, the bursts of energies as well. So things that have come before. Oh, I do have beacons here. Sorry, see, there you go. Right. So they're also about cycles as well. So they're about what needs to come in, what needs to go out. It's kind of Plutonian, but it's also kind of the sun. It's almost like the sun and the Pluto put together. I resonate a lot with that one. Um, and they're all about being finite or infinite, finite, infinite, finite, infinite. So it's a balance. They're really about balance and going from here to there. They're part of the integrated process that we're being called to as humans. So, but it depends on what quasar it is. So right now, the only thing I have so far done is the quasar twin quasar. Now that's more about the actual balance and relationship and all this stuff. So how what we learn from that and what we're going to go back into in terms of what is a relationship to us. Compensation, twin ones, things, twins as well. I feel like with quasars, it's more about because of where they are and how stable they are. Most quasars are actually fixed in place. So astrologically, when you see a quasar in your chart, which will be hard because it's not on astro.com, um, it'll determine what you have. So I'm going to actually test that right now for myself. So I'm going to look into the ephemeris. Let's see here. Are we? I'm hungry. If you're hearing grumbling, that's me being hungry. Let's see here. Did I put ephemeris dwarf planets quasar? Oh, here we go. Okay, here we go. Okay, so the twin quasar is in, for my birthday, 1980, 6 degrees 41 minutes, or 6.41 degrees. So I guess that's 6 degrees 41 minutes. That doesn't make sense. That's what they said here. 6.41 degrees. So let's just go with 6 degrees. That's 41 sounds weird. Okay. So if I were to look at my chart again, I'm actually going to go back here. I'll share the screen here. And because I can't, like, based on my research, here, I'll show you what I mean by this. Oh, okay, that's interesting how that shows up. Okay. Sorry, on my end, it sounds weird. Okay, where am I going here? I'm going to share the tab, the window. Okay, here we go. You can see here, born 1980, okay, 6 degrees 41 minutes Virgo. That's 1981 after. So 641. I would say it's approximate because it's moving. The twin quasar moves. Other quasars don't move. Like I'll show you in this list right here. Einstein cross moves. Further down the list, this one right here, RXJ1131, STSJ1029 plus 2623, weird name. It's stable. When I looked it up, they were basically, these are fixed. So I would just be like, okay, and that's it. So, but I would say the quasars provide more of like your overall inner wisdom, like your, how do I call this one? It's sort of like, I'm feeling this sort of like a return. It's kind of like a pullback. Let me go into this one. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing that one, and I'm going to go back to that tab right here. Okay. Let's take off relocation, modified data, use birthplace. Okay. Okay. Let's just go straight into my chart itself, right? So it says here 6 degrees 41. Oops. So twin quasar would be, again, 1980. 641. So approximately, I don't know. I'm going to zoom in. Let's say 6 degrees somewhere here. Really, really, really super tiny location. That would actually mean that twin quasar is actually square my Mars. If I were to look into the data I found with twin quasar, okay, it says here seemingly separate but not, you and me, unions joining up two as one, attraction, enamoredness, feeling enamored by someone, falling in love, adapting to relationships, meeting halfway, finding the third option, win-win, trust or otherwise, prudence, balance, patience, understanding, consent, getting to know someone, being kind of everywhere as well, being multitudinous, coming together, gatherings, communities and communes, same but different, intimacy, extending one's hands, reaching out, taking a while to learn and adapt, golden rule, changes, shifts in relationships, seesaw effect, one affects the other, domino effect, proposition, support, compensation, two-in-one things. That's the most I got out of this one, well, so far. It could also be that this might be tied to um, the balance thing could be also physical. So it could also tie to medical stuff. See, I put in here balance or imbalance, flexibility, long arms, which is actually interesting because I do have long arms and I have a balance thing. But because it's in Virgo, it has a lot to do with chronic little things as well. Now, if we were to go back into where it was here and it's square my Mars, I would say the inflammation I have has a lot to do with 'cause Virgo rules the central nervous system and it's Sagittarius. So I did have sciatic because of that. That totally makes sense right there. In terms of relationship, because this is the second house, money, work wise, yes, it fluctuates. Yes, I've had different jobs, multiple jobs. I'm everywhere too, different genres, different modalities, different types of jobs. I've had a lot of experiences with jobs, yes. But because of the Mars things, there's a square, says poses that there's a challenge between my relationship with foreigners, foreign employers, and foreign relationships, even with children too, foreign children. Um, because this is in Sagittarius in the fifth house, although Scorpio rules that house, so I would extend that to uh, Mars itself, which is right here, and also Pluto. That totally makes sense. So the twin quasars, but here I feel like the twin quasar in 6 degrees Virgo, or 6 degrees 41, 6.41 degrees Virgo, feels a lot like the lessons I have to learn. A lot is tied to my self worth, a lot of like what I value. So with the square to the two mutable signs, Virgo and Mars, it feels like it's doing the little things to bring back my self-worth and my love for myself. So it's going back inwards again by its origins. So it totally makes sense right there. So the twin quasar totally makes sense why it would be about, because the quasars are said to be kind of like they are the transmissions. They're all about radio transmissions. So if you think about radio transmissions and um how they emit that energy, it's like messages and downloads that you get specifically in this regard. But Mars also rules, what do you call this? Not only inflammation, but also like, how do you call this? Healing and accidents and things to do with, I think it's also something to do with waste management, similar to Pluto, but Pluto's heavier in that regard. So it's like detox as well. So that totally makes sense. I've had to change jobs. I've had to go through my self worth a lot. Um, when it comes to relationships, I've had maybe seven, and they kind of just fluctuated, and I wasn't sure about that. Um, so kind of there's a teeter totter effect between um, having an high expectation of relationships, which is in Virgo, versus letting it go, which is in Sagittarius. So I've had to actually, that totally makes sense. It totally applies. So yeah, the twin quasars work. The quasars work. I love it. That's wonderful. I'm so going to use them now. But I have several to work on. So there's the twin quasar. There's the Einstein cross. Um, Einstein cross is the next one. I'm all pretty much done with the quasar for the twin quasar. There's also the triple quasar. So Einstein cross, triple quasar. What's the next one? There's a lot more. Oh wait, there's also okay. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. At, at least 8 more, and then in addition to that, there will be 2, 3, 6, 7, 6. Let's just say about over 50 more. And so that's a lot. Okay, there you go. Oh, hello. Hi, Rahul. Welcome. Okay, so yep, I can hear you. Yeah, Rahul. Okay, so wanted- okay, let's see what we get. So, all right, sure. Let's see what we get here. I can't promise anything because this I do long readings with asteroids. Okay, so let's see what we get. I'm gonna actually that 1:10 a.m. I don't need to show your chart actually. I'll just add you here. Just to let you know, if we get cut off, if the connection goes bad, okay, what I'm gonna do is it's still gonna be recorded in the live event. Okay, so you can always go back to that. Let's see here. So your date of birth, your time of birth is 1:10 a.m. Is that December 8th? Or is that December 8th sorry, um sorry, September 12th? Which one is that? August 12th. Okay, got it. Okay. So let's go with your marriage. Let's go with that one. Um, what is your actual question pertaining to that? What do you mean by that? What is your question about it? What are you worried about? I'm laughing. I'm not laughing at you. We do that a lot as humans. That's why I find it funny. Don't worry, I'm not laughing. What is your question when it comes to that? Like, be more specific. Okay, sure. There's a lot of asteroids tied to marriage. So Ceres is one of them. Juno is one of them as well. There's a dwarf planet called Mbaba. Oh, one second here. Amphitrite, yeah, of course. And that's also tied to Salacia, the dwarf planet Salacia. Aphrodite, not Venus. Venus is different. Um, yeah, it could be Venus, but I don't know. Venus feels weird right now. That it's more about, it's a little superficial. Hebe is, sure, Hebe, we could do Hebe as well here. Okay. Marriage proposals, Sophia Non. Adhering to or following conditioned beliefs about love and marriage, redefining love. Aha, there you go. Another dwarf planet. Wonderful. There's a lot of asking someone's hand in marriage. Gilgamesh is part of this one. I'm going to remove this one. Squeezing my hand. The Janira, yeah. I think Hathor is part of that one. Let me double check here. Of course, Hera is part of this. What is this one? Ooh. I'm going to add Medusa here. This might be important. Short-term marriage. Alcestis, servitude in marriage. Oh. Okay, I'm going to stop there with this one and see what we get here. I'm going to look at your transits as well. Because it's marriage, no, I'm going to look at your what's called progression chart. Yeah, solar arc, natal plus solar arc. Okay. Let's see what we have. Oh, your Aphrodite's here. So when it comes to your sense of self-worth, it's tied to that. Uh, um, okay, that's why you're asking about this one. That totally makes sense. So there's a certain draw or attraction to an intensity that you need to experience, that your soul wants you to experience in this life, which is but it has a lot to do with your business, or like it's tied to your self-worth and how you help others, but also how you appear to the public. I can see why I feel like maybe you feel like you need to do this because it feels like a necessity. Um, but the very first thing I find that will probably help you, because when I do readings, I don't just do readings because it's like, oh, because it's just fun, but it's important to realize that you have to find genuineness in yourself, what it means to be your own nurturer, your own. You have to question, like, what is it? Why do you want to get into a marriage in the first place? You actually have to question that. Okay. You have to go deeper into yourself. Your North Node is conjunct Pluto here, but it's also conjunct, sorry, actually conjunct Hebe. That totally makes sense. But your Pluto's opposite your South Node through Medusa. Hmm. Okay. That's probably why you're asking that, because in past lives, or past parallel lives, You've had to had short arranges, like short arrangements, when it comes to marriage, at least. But it was very quiet. It was almost like you had to keep it secret. There's for some reason there was something there. There was resistance. It had a lot to do with things that were very clandestine, again, secret, because maybe a fatherly figure was expressing their opinions against it. Okay, which creates a lot of like, um, I guess for you, how you become of service to the world has a lot to do with that. So ask yourself the question first: what is it about marriage? Are you trying to prove it to someone, or are you doing it more for yourself? You want to ask that question. Okay, that's what I'm seeing here. So Pluto's asking you to become, like, go deeper into what it means to be of service to others. As humans, we do like helping others, but if we don't fill our cup, if we don't help ourselves, it doesn't help other people, right? So, but what I am seeing here is that there's some sort of like motherly figure that might be part of this process you're experiencing. Maybe someone who's kind of in a way supporting, but also maybe controlling as well, as of today. Okay. Um, they might feel like, so I don't know what it is about. Hold on, let me go back to Hebe here. Okay. You're very forgiving. You're very like, there's a sort of like, youthfulness about you. I'm seeing here. You're called to, rather, that's what your soul wants you. They want you to focus more on yourself and your sense of cleanliness for yourself, your gifts and your talents, um, trusting in your own vitality, in your strength. Okay. Maybe you're into music or arts right now, um, helping others with domestic affairs, maybe cooking, culinary services, that kind of stuff, lifelong employment. So it feels like you're working a lot. I feel like there's a lot of stuff you're doing with services kind of stuff. Um, and starting here also, I don't know if you're still not had any sexual experience. I'm not judging you on that. That's what I'm seeing here. There's something about having a sanctity of your beliefs about sanctity of marriage. Maybe because in the past or in past parallel lives, it wasn't. There was a lot of, um, I would say, it didn't feel like you were being completely like yourself. You didn't have the freedom to actually be yourself. So here you're being asked to actually go into like, well, there's complexities in relationships and how you help others because they're very tied to each other. Helping someone is similar to also being in a relationship because you're helping each other. It's not one way, one direction. It's a two-way road. But it's more about, you have to have each other's best interest at heart. Okay, if you know what I mean. Okay, so there's um what else am I seeing here? So in terms of that, that's what I'm seeing. There's just sort of like a motherly figure coming in here, but very controlling probably. But that's also because they want to connect somehow. It could be a person, could be, I don't know. There's someone who's probably also coming in as a marriage material. They feel intense for you, maybe. They feel like there may be too much, there may be too controlling. So I don't know if that's really for you because it doesn't resonate with you. You're Leo. So you want to shine. You want to be able to shine, especially through communication, like being able to express yourself. Um, there is someone who's probably more balanced here coming through. Maybe someone like a neighbor. I'm seeing like a neighbor here, like through a sibling, someone who's able to balance. They're kind of more certain about themselves. They're more certain about that they can accept you for who you are, and you accept them for who they are. It's you need to think of a win-win situation. Okay. Um, always find the third option. Right. If you don't agree with certain things, if there's too much, then you're most likely incompatible. That's it. Um, so you need to shine, you need to be able to shine. Okay, that's the whole thing about being a Leo as well. It's important. But you have that experience in life where you weren't able to shine. You express yourself, but it feels like you can't. Your soul wants you to be more tenacious, resilient towards being able to express yourself and express your truth. And that comes with relationships as well. Okay. You need someone who's willing to go through the pain you've gone through, your wounding of like not being able to how do you call this? Your wounding comes from perfection. So being able to have things very the way you want it or the way it should be or clean or pure, that kind of stuff, right? But you need someone who accepts that that wounding you have is something that you can be helping that partner with as well. Okay. Um, let's see here. Yeah, someone who's controlling is coming into your home life. They're sort of like it feels like they're very controlling and jealous. They have a jealous. So I don't know if right now is the time for that, but there's someone you can start to be friends with first. I don't know if someone's coming to your life already who is very nurturing, but who can balance that for you. Um, and someone who accepts you for you. Someone who's yes, someone who's actually just as very similar to you, like they are in music as well. Probably they're artistic. They help others through music. Probably they believe in the what's called the sanctity of marriage. That it's okay. Someone who's pretty much like you, right? Okay, I'm seeing this right here. Um, they are probably coming in through. They are probably marriage. They can be. There's a potential for it, but ultimately that is still up to you. Okay. Um, but watch out for sort of again people who are coming into like the workplace. Maybe someone who's in the workplace may not be marriage material. Watch out for intensity of passion and all that stuff. That's not an indicator of marriage. No. Um, if it were, eh, then it would have already started, right? So that's what I'm seeing here in when it comes to that kind of stuff. Um, what else am I seeing here? There's something about like you being able to balance and integrate and learn from someone who's like some maybe they've already kind of passed. I don't know if they're still here. Someone who's independent, who wants that. Maybe you can learn from them as well. I don't think this person is particularly for you, but maybe they are mirroring onto you. If you know shadow work, that's very important right now. Um, that they help and mirror to you what it feels like to what it really means to be in a union marriage, that kind of stuff. Okay. That's what I'm seeing here. So if someone is telling you the truth about something or they're expressing something of themselves, they're I don't know. Watch out for things like shadow. Watch out for people who you feel like, because you have Mercury in Leo as well, your self-expression, form of self-expression might explode. Okay. Watch out for reactivity. Rather, instead, go into responsibility. Respond, be present, be in the moment. You know this, right? The teachings of Buddha, the teachings of whatever. It doesn't matter who it is. It's all about being present in the moment and going into your body, bringing your attention to the body. So, and we're like, okay, what does that mean? Finding the gifts in everything. That includes like people who mirror themselves onto you because maybe there are people who don't want to get married and that's totally fine. You have to accept that it's like okay, well that's fine. Maybe you could be friends with someone. I think for you it's better when you become friends with someone first before getting into sort of this idea of marriage. Okay, you have to find your beliefs when it comes where that comes from, because I'm seeing here the thing you need to do when it comes to your beliefs about marriage is you have to look inwards and forget about what the public feels and judges you as, because if the public sees you probably as this person who's like, oh, he's very kind, he's very loving, and he's very unconditional and all that stuff. What they don't see in you is what your desire, your core beliefs have a lot to do with I want it a specific way. I want it to be pure, right? But growing up, you've had people be very, very like what do you call this? They indoctrinate you. They kind of push their beliefs on you, and you didn't really want that. So there's a part of you that kind of just overanalyze that, and you became this person who's just analyzing everything, and not really understanding it. But there's a reason for why they're doing that, because that means you can do what they're doing as well. Meaning, not to be preachy, not to be controlling other people, but rather to impart knowledge, impart wisdom the way you feel it is without pushing anything. Because that's the lesson behind it. That's the gold nugget. That's the gift behind it. This is shadow work. Shadow work is important right now for every human on the planet. It's very important. I tell you right now, you have to listen to that. Okay. You have to question what it is marriage for you? Why do you want to get married? Or why do you not want to get married? Right? Either way, you have to go deep and be honest with your emotions and how you feel about it. Write things as well and make the time. You have to grow through this. I recommend Teal Swan's work. Um, Look up Teal Swan's stuff. Her, what do you call this? She has videos on called the Parts Work. She also has the book on what is that one called? Completion Process. Okay. Just go through it. Just don't overanalyze it. See what you get out of it. Okay. Shadow work. There's also a book by what's her name? It's called The Dark Side of Light Chasers. You're probably wondering, what does this have to do with marriage? Everything. This is all connected. Because if you get into a marriage and you don't work on your beliefs and what you want for yourself, what will happen is that you'll just keep attracting, getting people who are not right for you because you're not honoring yourself within, right? A tree doesn't grow its branches and twigs and all that stuff without growing its roots first. As above, so below. This is shadow work. This is part of being human. We live in a mirrored universe. Okay. So, yeah. So, really question what your beliefs are about that. But as far as what I've said before, someone may be coming into your life, start out as friends. Start out as friends. Okay. That's usually not only safer, but also more about you want to be real with this person. You want to be real with how you're relating with them. Okay. That's what I'm getting here. There's just that's the strong one right now. Um Yeah, because you tend to probably want things to be simple as well. It's okay to want things to be simple, but balance that with complexity. If it's complex, what does that mean? What is it telling you? What is the message behind it? What is the gift you can get out of that? What's the message? What's the gold nugget? So like, okay, so maybe if it's complex, it means maybe you can't sit around in your own little comfort zone. Okay. You can it's like when, maybe I should change things up. Because if we want things to change, we ourselves also have to change, right? So I can say that for myself. I know that. I know. So do things that are slightly different every single time, right? So like I know like my boyfriend has his south node in Taurus as well, and his north node is in Scorpio. He can get pretty stubborn and he doesn't want change that much. But I'm like told him it's like you have to embrace the complexity. Change is inevitable. You have to do that, right? So go through your healing, go through this stuff, and at the same time, start slow. Do things that are slow. You know this, right? Leo likes to take things slow. Start out as friends. Find things that you have in common, but always also find the third option. Look for a win-win situation, right? Can't always be in control, can't always get what you want. As Leo, you're like, I want things my way, and you don't like looking bad in front of other people. You don't like looking bad. So what you do is you also express directly and kindly but firm, being kind but firm to whoever you talk to, what it is that you expect, right? The shadow of Leo comes through in Aquarius. Aquarius communicates. You can communicate, but sometimes maybe the expression can come off a little too Mm, it needs a balance of the fire and the air. It needs a balance of intuition, inspiration with logic and sound meaning. Sound like sound, not sound, like, like it has to make sense to both of you. So that's why win-win situation. So, okay. So that's what I'm getting here. Um, Someone coming in from your past life also, who's quite, again, there's that jealousy thing coming up again. Um, just let it pass. They're just there. Maybe someone who's very resentful. That's because the reason why they're resentful is because they had their own lessons, right? They 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 were betrayed. The story of Medusa here is tied to your South Node. Um, but it's in your transiting, not transiting. It's going to your first house, so that means that you're probably encountering this person in general. Um, where there's a lot of, I don't know. There's something about them that feels kind of like they're very vindictive, maybe. There's a lot of rage, probably. So leave them to their devices, leave them to their issues. That's not for you to solve. That's not for you to work out. Okay. That's just for you to be like, okay, that's who you are. Um, it may also be that there's something about, what am I seeing here? So, oh, they have father issues. They have father issues. Okay. Daddy issues, like, I like, maybe they didn't get enough, support, they weren't loved, so they felt very powerful or powerless rather, and they're victimizing, maybe they're scapegoating you, they're using you to share the problems. Just let it pass through you. Let it pass through you. As in, when I say let it pass through you, just be like, "Okay." Don't feed the flame. Don't use don't go like, don't, again, respond. But responding doesn't always mean that you're saying something. Respond could just be there, right? So, um, what else is here? Okay, let's see if we can go into your other question. Let's see. Is your future spouse? Uh, I can't tell in terms of like what date you're referring to. It's very specific when it comes to dates. As of right now, um, that could be anybody. Really, when I say anybody, I mean, well, Juno is where we look at, right? But if you were looking into your chart, and I see Juno here is in, okay, so 25 degrees Libra. Okay, I can see that. According to this one, it shows up in, sorry, 1 second, 25 degrees. Where is this going to? Oh, okay. Someone who you can communicate with really well, but there's a lot of intensity in that relationship. Um, they're most likely not going, they're probably going to play hard to get. They're probably not going to just, they're going to make you want to chase them, or maybe not want you to chase them at all. But it is tied to your vocation, tied to career. I would say because this has a lot to do with personal freedom, that mirrors onto you that you have to find that in yourself. You have to be able to balance that with that person. But it does say here that it is someone you probably relate to at first. Um, you want someone who's also childlike, someone who's balanced with you, right? It's again, lots of communication, but also um, intense communication, but also weird. There's something weird about this person. Um, but again, it's tied to your whatever vocation you get into. But it's more about not vocation. It's more about where. Actually, let me double check. Hold on. Let me double check your midheaven. Uh, what is this one? Well, what degree is that in? Oh, okay. Yeah, someone who's weird, but also I would say quite very loving. Even though the emotions can be quite intense, there's a lot of chatter, chatter, chatter. That's totally fine. Um, that's what I'm seeing that it says. Someone who's good with children as well. Um, someone who is, but they can be in denial of things. Watch out for that, right? Someone who's like that. They might have, they might be kind of misunderstood, highly misunderstood, this person. Um, sorry, 1 second here. 25 degrees. Yeah, they're probably highly probably misunderstood, or they don't understand themselves yet. Someone who's kind of uncertain about themselves, but they're quite, they're not, how do you call this, publicly, or they're not that expressive about how loving they are. They're more like matter of fact. But what happens is that maybe they have trouble expressing their love language to other people. So they mm, they question their own uniqueness because they're probably, being told what to do, and then I don't know, something issues with like old traditions, grandparents, and all that stuff. Someone who's not only misunderstood but also probably scapegoated. They're used as an excuse to do this, and they're accused of things or stuff like that. So they might have had issues with their own health as well because of that. So something to do with their lower back. I don't know if they have issues with their lower back. Something to do with their skin. I feel like it's tied more to the skin. Um, maybe they have unusual skin symptoms or something like that, because of the history they've had with control, being misunderstood, controlled somehow. Um, but there's a wisdom to them, that's very quiet. So I would say someone who's very loving but also quiet, because you need someone who's going to listen to you, right? So it can't be balanced. It can be balanced with. It depends. That depends if they're spiritual. You would have to get to know them. There's spirituality in anything. Okay, don't assume spirituality is like this and this and this. There's spirituality in everything. We have this conceptualization that spirituality is like it's only in a niche or something like that. No, no, there's spirituality in everything. Everything is can be spiritual. You have to find the gifts in every situation, every second of your life. That's why it's always good to be present in the moment. Go out to nature, right? They do like this. This person would probably also love nature, beauty, things are beautiful things, simple things, because of their history with being judged, misunderstood, misconstrued, ostracized, probably accused of like things like you did this, um, there's a wounding about them that needs to be healed as well. Um, so you can say that they can be spiritual. I mean, I know that when it comes to astrology, people or divination and all this stuff, people want to hear what they want to hear, but trust that your soul wants you to go into complexities. Trust that your soul wants you to learn through these wounds, through the intensities of things. Okay. Trust that your soul wants you to go through your shadow as well. That's important for you. You need to go through shadow work. You need to go into embracing what the dark side means for you, and then how you can use it to expand. Sometimes people think dark means like I have to go evil. I have to be evil. No, it has nothing to do with any of the polarity and all that stuff. Darkness and evil are just separate from separation. They're not. They have this mindset of separation. that I am me, you are you. So screw you, screw me. It's separation. That's not what it is. Unity consciousness is embracing the dark side and allowing it for, because darkness is all darkness is allowing for us to process deep emotions so that we have time to actually heal them and going like the roots of a tree. It's dark below the earth, right? It's subterranean. So we have to learn through that, and we have to understand that there's a reason for it. When we allow it to grow inside of us and actually sit and really learn from what those messages mean, you go shadow work. The teal swan stuff is really good. You have to embrace what your inner child wants. So you go into meditations process where you it's look it up. Look up completion process by Teal Swan. That's beautiful. You want to bring any wounding from the past, and what you're doing is you're revising, you're changing your perception of what happened, but more about the emotions behind what happened. You're not changing the story. You're not changing what the facts that happened. You are changing your perception of it by going deeper into your inner child, because the inner child is what's going to lead you to freedom for yourself, and therefore you will attract better relationships, therefore a better marriage, if that is what you really want, right? So if that resonates with you, right? Don't confuse excitement and what people tell you and all that stuff with actual love. Love is, we have this understanding that love is something in being human, right? Unconditional love is also that. We think unconditional love is just being passive and all that stuff. No, it's a balance, right? It's a balance. That's why win-win situation. You have to understand that. So your shadow work is important. Future spiritual life. Um, future spiritual life. I don't know what you mean by future spiritual life. Be more specific, please. I'll see what I can do. We have like 7 minutes. I promised only myself to be here for an hour and a half. I'm willing to do this, yes, but time. There's still time. we still have. We still live in a time-oriented existence, unfortunately. What do you mean by future spiritual life? Do you mean like, um, where you headed? I don't know. Oh, you want actual dates for that one? Let's take a look. Okay, I'm gonna go into transits. Where is Juno right now? Okay, I'm gonna go into the ephemeris here. 1 second. Oh wait, that's not gonna work here. 1 second. Where are we? Okay, here we go. Ephemeris, Juno. So we want your Juno to be in 25 degrees Libra. When will that be? Since you're asking for the date, I don't know if this is guarantee, okay? I'm not sure if this is guarantee, but your Juno return, let me see here, will be in 25 degrees Libra again on December, what is this one here? Around December 7, 2028. December 7, 2028. That's not a guarantee. I'm just saying, more importantly, that's an inward work inside you. When you have a Juno return, to me, that means that you are to reevaluate what marriage means for you at that time. Because if you get into anything and if you're not doing the inner work, it's pointless. Yeah, I can give you dates, whatever it is, but at the same time, it's a potential, right? I think you've heard about this. Quantum physics says infinite possibilities. That means whatever you take now for yourself will lead you into a better direction. The astrology charts nor divination nor anything spiritual won't really dictate that. They're just showing you possibilities. So whatever you take now can go into any direction it will, not because it's literally like destiny or fate. It is, but at the same time, that's not how it works. Fate is and destiny are you being born and you dying, meaning like what your soul came here to do. When it says, I'm done, I'm done. When it says, I'm ready, I'm ready. You have to listen to that. You have to listen to your soul, your higher self, right? And to do that, you have to go deeper, not because it's spiritual, but because it is your essence. It is who you are. You understand that? It's not about spirituality. It's not about modalities. It's not about this technique or this or this or this or that. None of that. What matters is what feels right to you, where it feels like it's from the heart, it's joy. Okay. And you feel just connected. You just feel like inspired. You just feel like, oh, okay, I love this, right? Right. Go into things that you love. Start with things that you love. Don't worry about external things. You'll be more magnetic when you actually focus on what you love, because you'll just attract it, just like the sun is. The sun will shine bright, and the rest of the planets revolve around it because it is so bright. It's like, oh, I want that warmth, right? But you can't be like the sun that goes, I'm going to burn supernova. You can't be like that. That's not how attraction works. But at the same time, don't make it about attraction. Don't make it about magnetism as well. Okay. So, anyways, thank you guys for watching. For those who stayed behind, if you are still here, great. Um, that was a sample of what I did, what I could do. That was fun. That was very fun. That was very interesting. I'm going to go take my walk, but I think that's it for you guys, or that's it for me, rather. And I will see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. See you later. Bye.